Hello, everyone. Today we're talking about short sales, and we're talking about short sales from a home buyer perspective, not from a seller perspective so much. There's a lot of content, a lot of material out there on the internet from real estate professionals on what sellers need to know when it comes to short sales, implications of short selling and so on and so forth. But what does the buyer need to know? What do you as a home buyer need to be prepared for in the event that you go out there and you write an offer to purchase a short sale? So let's take a look. Well, first of all, what is a short sale? A short sale is actually a transaction in which the market value of the property that's being sold is below the amount of the loan or loans that are owed to the lender or lenders by the owner of the property. So the seller is basically in a situation where they owe more money to one or more lenders than the property is really worth. And if the property were to have to sell, the owner or seller would have to come in with cash to make the numbers work. And of course, a lot of times that's just not going to happen. It's just not going to work. So what has to happen is the lender or lenders, the lender has to approve the transaction. So the buyer and the seller will agree on a purchase price and some other terms, which, are no different to any other real estate purchase transaction. But in addition to all of these, the lender has to approve the transaction. The transaction has to be approved by the lender, or as I said, in some cases, more than one lender. So a short sale agreement is actually, if you think about it, between three parties: the homeowner, their lender or lenders, and a third party buyer, which would be you, the buyer. So the homeowner, their lender or lenders, and a third-party buyer, which would be you. And here's home buyer's short sale tip number 2. Are you serious and will you last? Short sales take time to happen. They don't happen typically as quickly as a regular, what we would call a standard sale. These transactions take time because there are more parties involved. And you as a buyer have to be prepared for that. A lot of buyers just can't wait for the short sale approval to come. And a lot of times it seems like it takes forever. And buyers will write an offer, sometimes even put down earnest deposit, and then walk. Buyers will pull out, back out, and leave. So a lot of times what we're seeing in the marketplace now is that lenders that are approving the short sales are making sure that buyers have some skin in the game and putting in some clauses that will basically make it a little bit more difficult for you as a buyer to just change your mind 30, 40, 60 days into the process and leave. So what lenders are doing very often now is they're forcing the buyer to agree to forfeit the earnest deposit money. Boy, I tell you, that'll make you stick around for the short sale approval to go through and make sure that you close. So watch out for that clause. If you're writing an offer on a short sale property, be sure to look out for that. If you're someone that's just not willing to stay the course and wait for the process to run its course, you may want to take a real close, long, hard look at whether a short sale is for you or not, because the lender that's behind the transaction might force you to give up your earnest deposit money in the event that you walk away. Now, here's home buyer's short sale tip number 3, HALFA. HALFA is a fancy abbreviation, if you would, for home affordable foreclosure alternatives. And it's basically a government legislation that was updated in December of 2010. And the government legislation has basically made the whole process a little less harsh on the seller, the owner of the property, which indirectly makes the whole short sale transaction close a little quicker. In fact, a lot of real estate professionals in the market will tell you today that short sales are closing quicker than ever before, and HAFA has a lot to do with that because it's streamlined and made a little bit easier on the seller the process that needs to happen in order for the short sale to be approved and the transaction to close. Now, you've got to understand, as a home buyer, that lenders are not obligated to have to follow the HAFA rules. There are some incentives from the federal government for the lenders that do, but not all lenders will, and they're not obligated to. And so the ones that won't are probably going to be a part of a short sale transaction that takes a little bit longer. So in summarizing, the HAFA rule means that you could close quicker. It could mean that there's a quicker closing for you on your short sale transaction. Short sale tip number 4, the buck stops where? Sellers will usually accept whatever short sale offer seems bona fide because at the end of the day, if you really think about it, they're not the ones about to lose their shirt They have little to lose, and they might be salvaging something about their credit profile in short selling rather than walking away from the home and abandoning it. But usually, a seller's going to accept whatever offer is made on a short sale transaction because they're not the ones losing the money. The lender or lenders that they owe the money to are actually the ones that finally have to agree or disagree to your terms as the buyer. And so remember that a seller and buyer can sign a contract, but the short sale has to be approved by the lender for the transaction to go through. Homebuyer short sale tip number 5: possible delays beyond your control. If the seller doesn't cooperate with their own lender or lenders involving necessary documents like hardship letters explaining their financial problems and financial documents like bank statements, pay stubs, tax returns, retirement account statements, so on and so forth. If the owner of the property doesn't cooperate, the whole process can come to a screeching halt, even if you, the buyer, are well qualified, well able, willing, and ready to close. In some occasions, the lender will likely actually have a checklist of requirements and paperwork required for the short sale process, and it takes a lot of diligence on the part of the owner of the property. So usually on a short sale offer, it's kind of important to make sure that your agent, your buyer's agent, realtor that's representing you, is in contact with the listing agent of the property, if there's one involved, to make sure that the sellers are far enough along the process in providing necessary paperwork for the short sale to be approved. Because remember, as we said earlier, there are three parties to a successful short sale closing. There's the owner, the seller, the lender or lenders, and then the buyer, which is you. You might play ball, you might play by the rules and do everything right, but if the owner of the property isn't cooperating or is slow or just not doing what they're supposed to do, there could be delays beyond your control. Homebuyer short sale tip number 6: be prepared for a counteroffer. Usually, you're not going to get a counteroffer from the owner of the property themselves. As we said earlier, they're on their way out. They're technically losing their home and salvaging what they can in terms of their credit and hopefully not having a tax liability. So a counteroffer is more likely to come from the lender that has to approve the short sale transaction as the interested third party. So here's how the process goes. You, the buyer, will make an offer. The lender that has to approve the short sale, we're not talking about your mortgage lender that you're getting a loan approval from. We're talking about the lender that may actually be in process of foreclosing on the home. So you've made your offer. That lender's going to send an appraiser or some other evaluator, for example, a BPO, which is conducted by a broker. It's known as a broker price opinion. So the lender's going to send somebody out there to evaluate the property, determine the fair market value. And so in an example, say you offered $100,000 on a home that they now believe is worth $130,000, you're going to receive a counteroffer. And this dispels the notion in the market that short sales always involve, great deals. That's not always the case. Short sales will often involve properties that are sold at or about close to where fair market value is. Of course, if the property has repair issues, then you as the buyer might get the property for a little bit less than market value. But don't be surprised if there's a counteroffer from the lender, even at the 11th hour in the process, just when you think you're home free, because they've sent an appraiser out there or an evaluator out there, and they've determined that the fair market value of the property is actually more than what you've offered. Now, here's homebuyer short sale tip number 7: multiple offers. Are you prepared? There's a good chance that you're not going to be the only one making an offer on that home that you like so much. Buyers are now increasingly becoming more and more patient. There's a lot more information available on the internet. Buyers are realizing now that it takes a little bit of staying power to come across good deals and stick around for short sale approvals to come through. So a lot of the buyers that in the past were bailing are sticking around, which now in turn means that the lender that's having to approve the short sale is considering more than one offer. And the reason I say this is it's very important that you are aware of what the true market value of the property is. It's not that difficult to figure that out. You can pull your own comparables on any number of internet websites, or you can have your real estate agent pull up a market value comparison for you before you go in with an offer. You need to know what you're willing to pay for the home by checking recent comparables in the area of closed homes, closed sales. It's also important to know that you need to decide before you make an offer how far or how high you're willing to go based on the comparables and the information that you have available at your fingertips. A rule of thumb is to make your first offer your very best offer and also your final offer, and that way you're not caught up in a mental, emotional game where you might feel pressured to keep upping, if that's even a word, increasing your offer just because you're hearing from the other end that there are multiple offers raising the price. It's very important that you're armed with data, with accurate information. Don't be swayed by your emotions in the fear of losing out on what might appear to be a good deal just because multiple other offers are coming in and bumping the price up. If you have done your research with or without your real estate agent and with or without online information, you should feel confident with your first and final offer. Homebuyer short sale tip number 8 has to do with repairs and costs. Now, as we said earlier, many sellers in short sale transactions are actually in financial trouble. They've got stuff going on that's causing them to often fall behind in the payment, which might be the very reason that their home is up for a short sale. So there's a good chance the seller will actually not be able to do any repairs. For example, Section 1 repairs in the wood destroying pest inspection report, also known as a termite report. Now, this may vary from state to state and from lender to lender, but just be aware that the expense of a termite report or even repairs might fall on you as the buyer just because the seller is not really motivated to do any repairs or the seller is financially unable to do any repairs. Now, especially with government-backed financing such as FHA, VA, or USDA loans, it's not uncommon for the appraiser to call for repairs. And so if the owner of the property involved in a short sale transaction is unwilling or unable to do so, just be prepared that it might fall on you as the buyer.